What's going on, guys? It is the Coaster Battleman here, bringing you an awesome video, the top 10 roller coasters at Kings Island, and the honorable mentions are included from 14th place to 11th place, and that will be on the next slide. But shout out to Coaster Media. I met him at Kings Island when I was there. Pretty cool YouTuber. He has around 860 subscribers. I recommend to subscribe with him. I rode Vortex with him with the, you know how like at Kings Island where there's these wheels that are all over the park, you can spin them for $5 per spin, and you can get a free fast lane for any attraction. And I got one for Vortex, and I rode with him. So yeah, top 10 coasters at Kings Island. The honorable mentions are included. And here are the honorable mentions. Flying Ace Aerial Chase is it's kind of mediocre. It's at 14th. Invertigo's at 13th because even though it does have some nice intensity during the ride, it's kind of rough. So that's why it's at number 13. Number 12 is Racer, and this coaster is pretty rough. I should say that. And when you're not racing the other side, it's more of a family coaster, and it doesn't really deliver any airtime, or at least from my experience. And 11th is Woodstock Express, and you could say, why are you ranking this ahead of Racer? But Woodstock Express, I actually enjoyed it. Even though it is pretty small, and it's a small kid coaster, it was pretty smooth, and it had some nice little drops in there, even though it was kind of short. I thought it was alright. But now we're getting into the top 10. Number 10 is Adventure Express, and I used to really hate this coaster last year when I went to Kings Island because it was so rough. But this year it was kind of rough, but it was a bit smoother than it was last season. I really enjoyed the section before the first lift hill. It was decently intense. The final lift hill is pretty cool with the theming, and overall this coaster is pretty good. You go through the trees a little bit, and it's overall a nice experience for the families. I thought it was a pretty nice experience, and the theming was pretty good too. Number 9 is the Bat, and this is a pretty fun aero suspended coaster. Unfortunately, I could only get on this ride once because I didn't really have that much time to ride. But on that one ride, I really did enjoy the coaster. Even though this coaster is kind of a short ride, I still enjoyed the intensity it brings and those swooping turns. But other than the swooping turns and the ride being an overall intense experience, this coaster won't offer the most out of other coasters. And I could say I like Iron Dragon better than the Bat. I admit it. But they're both very fun, and I really do enjoy the Bat, especially the fact that it has no line usually. And it's a pretty nice walk to get there, so the Bat, it's pretty picturesque as well, as you can see in the photo. We're moving on to number 8, which is Vortex, and I rode this 4 times in 2 days when I went to Kings Island, because last season in 2016, I really did enjoy this coaster. I didn't get any head banging on it, and I thought it was fairly smooth too for an aero looper, and I thought it was pretty fun. This year, I still thought it was alright, but it was much, much more bumpier. Like the second time I rode this for 2017 when I was at Kings Island, it was just, I had 2 huge head bashes that were just awful. But there are some nice pros. The corkscrews aren't bad. Probably the worst inversion is that Batwing. The 2 vertical loops give some decent G-forces. But overall, it just depends on what row you're in. If you're in the front row or a middle row, I think you will enjoy this ride. And I've heard when I was talking with Coaster Media while waiting in line for Vortex, he said that being in the back is a bit smoother, so those were just some recommendations, but overall, I really do enjoy Vortex, even though it's not as good as I remember it. Number 7 is a coaster that actually climbed up a lot on my list, Flight of Fear. Even though I unfortunately only got to ride it once, I still really enjoyed it. The launch was pretty fun. The inversions were alright as well. It was pretty cool being in the dark. The final inversion was alright. The ride was wasn't the greatest, but the reason why it's up this high is because I really, really enjoy the theming. I really like how you're in the queue line and you're watching this cool like Flight of Fear cartoon or something, and there's this massive spaceship or UFO in the queue line. It's pretty cool, and you go through it and stuff. It's awesome. Overall, Flight of Fear has some cool theming. The first launch is very fun, and I enjoyed this coaster much more than I did in 2016. Number 6 is Firehawk, the coaster next to Flight of Fear. And they're next to each other on this countdown as well. And I really enjoy Firehawk. Even though I unfortunately got to ride it only once, I still enjoyed it. The first drop is very fun. The inversions are really good as well, especially that vertical loop. That is an insane inversion, very intense, very fun element. And overall, it's nice how there's just inversion after inversion after inversion. Even though this coaster isn't as smooth as Superman Ultimate Flight at my home park, Six Flags Great America, this coaster was still fairly smooth and not unbearably rough like some Vekomas. So, Firehawk, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a pretty fun flying coaster. Now we're getting into the top 5, and number 5 is the underdog of all the coasters at Kings Island, Backlot Stunt Coaster. And you can rank this way lower, like probably at number 8 or number 7, or even lower than that. Maybe not even in the top 10. But I really enjoy Backlot Stunt Coaster, especially that first triple helix. That is a very intense element where you just gray out almost every single time you ride. It's pretty intense. You get some crazy ejector air on the drops depending on what row you're in. If you're in the front car, I feel like you will enjoy this coaster the most. The effects are pretty cool, and overall, Backlot Stunt Coaster, I really, really enjoy it. It's not the smoothest coaster out there, but I still enjoyed it a ton. Very good coaster, and definitely an underrated ride, even though it's a clone. Number 4 is Banshee, and this is the B&M invert at Kings Island. And we already know about Banshee. It's one of the best B&M inverts. People said that's not as good as Montu at Busch Gardens Tampa, but I still think this is a very good coaster. Front row is definitely the perfect experience. I've heard that if you're on the very right side seat, that you will have the most enjoyable ride experience. Like, on the very right, I mean the front row. But if you're in any other row besides the front row, you're going to have kind of a shaky experience. Or at least that's what I noticed when riding Banshee in 2017, this year, when I'm making this video. But still, I really enjoyed this coaster, and especially in the front row. This is a front row coaster. It's like front row or bust, but still. Very fun invert. The inversions are amazing, especially that final inversion. Number 3 is Mystic Timbers, the newest coaster at Kings Island. This is a pretty fun GCI, and overall, it's one of my favorite wooden roller coasters. It has a very fun curved drop, pretty intense, and I only got to ride it 3 times, which is pretty good, considering that the ride usually has a 2.5 hour line. I was there for early ride times. But Mystic Timbers, very fun coaster. The first drop is very good. The theming is well done with that pickup truck outside the queue. You do have to buy a locker for this coaster, unfortunately. But other than that, this is just a very good coaster. And when I rode this coaster, I found it kind of to be a disappointment, but I still really enjoyed it. Intensity was good. You were flying over the water and the rolling rapids type ride. I'm not really sure how to call it. It's one of those raft rides with a circle tube or something, and it's a water ride. But overall, Mystic Timbers, very fun GCI, even though I didn't really feel any airtime, I still thought it was very enjoyable, very smooth, pretty intense. The tunnels were good too, and the shed was pretty cool too. Number 2 is the Beast, and this could be number 1. It's just unbelievable. The first drop is very fun, even though it does have trim brakes, I get it. But still, I recommend to ride this in the back car because you will feel the speed more than in the front. And you have to ride this thing at night. This coaster, the Beast, its night ride is amazing. And even though the night ride was probably one of my rougher rides on the Beast when I was at Kings Island, I still really enjoyed it. It's super fun, very fun layout. Even though the layout isn't the greatest, it's just unbelievable. You're just flying through the forest at good speeds. The final double helix is very fun. I really like the slanted drop. This is just a fun coaster, even though it's not the smoothest coaster at Kings Island. It's just one fun ride. It's definitely one of the world's greatest wooden coasters. And why do you hate it, Canada Coaster fan? Number 1 is Diamondback. This is an awesome coaster, very good B&M hyper. The airtime is just unbelievable. The floater air is amazing on Diamondback. It is a powerhouse of airtime. And you can rank this at number 2 or number 1, depending on who you are. If you're a bigger wooden coaster fan, I think you would rate the Beast at number 1. But if you're a steel coaster fan like I am, you'd probably rank Diamondback at number 1. But overall, Diamondback, since 2009, has definitely been the best coaster at Kings Island. The floater air time is amazing. The water splashdown is awesome as well. And the ride is super long, too. So that was my top 10 coasters at Kings Island, including honorable mentions. How was this video? Share your opinion in the comments below. And yeah, thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more videos.